Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for the Training Procedures Kickoff for Fiscal Year 2025. Please note this conference is being recorded and all audio connections are muted at this time. If you require technical assistance, please open chat with the associated icon at the bottom of your screen and send a message to the event producer. You may also submit written questions throughout the conference by selecting All Panelists from the drop-down menu in the chat panel. With that, I'll turn things over to Debbie Farson, Training Officer.
Thank you, Candace. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming. Today, and again 1 week from today, I'm making this presentation to let the PIH workforce know the procedures to access training in fiscal year 2025. Next slide, please. Here is a list of what we're going to review today. It's rather detailed because we're going to provide these slides to you after the presentations are complete, and you can use this slide as an index for later reference to jump forward and see what the content is, what you might be looking for. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with a brief explanation of who we are in the Training and Development Division. Next slide. So who is the training team, training and development team? Well, we are in PIH's Office of Operations, which is led by Deputy Assistant Secretary Shai Ferry. Within operations, we are part of the Office of Procurement Management, which is led by Kia Neal. The training and development team consists of the people that you see listed on this slide. Each of us, in addition to other duties, acts as a program training liaison, or a PTL, to PIH program offices. That's most of you. PTLs handle customer service for the program offices that they're assigned to. Next slide. Customer service to program offices on training matters is a top priority for the team. We are also offering training and development opportunities. Training opportunities such as the PIH group courses that we invite the PIH workforce to register for, more about that later, and professional development opportunities. Finally, we are responsible for records that involve training procurement and training completion. So for example, the standard form or SF-182 training request. And again, more on that shortly too, as well as records that involve your official training transcripts in Encompass. Next slide. Within each program office, you all have one or more staff members who are designated as your program training coordinators, or PTCs. Next slide. This is a list of PTCs for each program office. I'll pause just a bit so y'all can locate yours. And remember, we'll have these slides out to you, so you'll be able to refer back to it. Next slide. Your program office's PTC is your first point of contact for questions, concerns, or assistance with training-related issues. They also review all the SF-182 training requests that come through your program office. And part of why they're doing that is to keep an eye on the program office training budget allocations. They also assist you with market research. Please pay attention as well to the emails that they send you. They are your training communication folks. They're regularly going to be sending you information from the training and development team, from my team, about available group trainings, where to locate recorded sessions of SAFE fundamentals, and other valuable information on training. Next slide, please. So now that we've named all the players, let's dig into the first of the big topics that I wanted to talk to y'all about today, and that is the training requests. I mentioned the SF-182 briefly before. I know it's familiar to most of you. That's the standard form that has to be used to request trainings, whether for individuals or groups, no cost or with a cost. Note that it is only for training as training is defined within federal employment. We're going to show you a definition of training on slide 10. SF-182s also are only used for commercially available off-the-shelf or COTS, C-O-T-S trainings, and only for trainings that cost somewhere between no dollars and $25,000. We'll define COTS more in a minute, but new this fiscal year, SF-182s are submitted in our new training request tool. We are asking that submissions be made 30 days prior to the training start date. And that's not much different than what we've done in previous years. This allows us plenty of time to get that process all the way through your program office approvals and budget approvals and all the way back to us. So 30 days is a really good benchmark for you. But this new request system isn't going to allow any requests submitted fewer than 14 days prior to the training start date. So if you have a really urgent, shorter time frame than that, please reach out to the training and development team so we can assist you. We're going to touch on parts of the tool, the new training submission tool today, especially when we discuss market research and a little bit when we talk about training costs. But detailed instructions on how to use that tool were provided in trainings in September. Slides and recordings of those trainings were distributed and are also housed on the new request tool systems help SharePoint. And we've provided you a URL for that on the last slide. So lots of help out there on using this new request tool. Next slide. Here we have the official definition of training. Remember, SF-182 isn't the right instrument to use if what you're requesting isn't training. So let's define what training is. This is what it is as it pertains to federal employees. First of all, note that it's codified by statute, right? So this was passed by Congress. This isn't something that was made up at HUD or even within my team. And as you can see, though, it's pretty broad, right? As long as what the course that you are seeking improves individual and organizational performance and assists in achieving agency mission and goals, it probably qualifies. So your ballet class isn't going to make the cut, but many, many, many other subjects will. Next slide, please. A training must also be commercial off the shelf if you're going to use the SF-182 for authorizing it. COTS is defined by regulation again, so we're not making it up, right? COTS is defined as offered without modification in the same form as in the commercial marketplace. Now, we sometimes say, another way of saying this is the same training that the vendor would give anybody who's asking for it. They haven't modified it in any way for HUD. Please keep in mind that shortening it from its shortening the training from its originally offered time frame, removing parts of it or adding parts to it, all of this is modification or tailoring, which takes it out of the SF-182 process for authorization. If you have questions about whether a training you're considering is COTS or how to get something authorized and procured that is not COTS, please reach out to the training team for assistance. Next slide. There are some trainings that you're not going to need an SF-182 for. Your agency mandatory training is an example. Anything that you are taking through HVU or Percipio is an example. PIH group trainings that are offered by the PIH training team, or trainings that are offered by other HUD offices or divisions like OCHICO's TDWP, which by the way used to be called HUD Learn, in case you're trying to place that acronym. These sorts of trainings do not need an approved SF-182 for you to attend. There are also some things that you might be able to obtain by another process, but not through an SF-182. So in other words, for these other things on the list, on the second half of this slide, the SF-182 is just not the right vehicle, right? Those things include exams, if they're not included in the overall training cost, right? Sometimes they are, but if they're an extra cost, it can't be done through an SF-182. It includes conferences that have not been approved as training conferences by HUD's Chief Learning Officer, subscription services, software licenses, and trainings that exceed $25,000 in cost. If you are looking to get one of these things, please don't ask for it by SF-182, but reach out to us for assistance. Next slide. All right, so a few things you're going to want to have handy before you go into our wonderful new tool and start your SF-182 request. First is your list of attendees. If you have a group, if this is a group training, right, you need the complete list of people who are going to come. We're not going to allow any substitutions for a group after the SF-182 has been approved, depending on where it is in the submission system, but definitely not after it's been approved. You're going to need to have your market research ready. So the attendee list and the market research no longer get uploaded as separate documents into the request tool. Rather, you input the list and the market research directly into the system. But you need to have it ready so that you can do that, right? You're still going to need to upload a syllabus and a quote, just as you did under the old system. And as has always been true with a syllabus and a quote, whether they're on the same document or separate documents isn't as important as what they have to show, what the document you're uploading has to show, right? It has to have the vendor name on it. It has to show the dates, times, and cost of the training, and it has to have a description of the training. Next slide, please. Market research is still required under the new tool. It's a part of the federal acquisition regulations that requires it. What is different under the new tool is that, as I said before, it gets documented within the market research submodule of the tool instead of an uploaded document. We're not requiring market research because we're sadists, although I'm sure sometimes it probably feels that way. It almost feels that way to me sometimes. But it's because it is part of the regulations, right? It's required. The only time that you're not going to need it is for a no-cost training or a free training, right? Because there's nothing to research at that point, $0. Next slide, please. All right, I want to dig into the market research process and demystify it a little bit. I joke about it, but it's really, it's not that complicated, and there are some very specific steps to take. So what we want you to have are these slides so that you can follow these steps yourself, right? And we'll also tell you how you can get help with it. So the first step is to start with a search in GSA Advantage. The URL is right there on the slide. We've noticed that if you use both keywords and industry codes when searching for training, you're going to get better results. The main industry codes that you might need for trainings is the Professional and Management Development Training Code or the Computer Training Code. And we've put those on the slide for you as well. If you do not find 3 to 5 vendors in GSA, then you can expand your search to the internet. Once you have 3 to 5 vendors identified who offer training on the topic you are interested in, you're going to need documentation from the vendor that shows the course dates, times, cost, and content. If you are doing an SF-182 to join a class that the vendor is holding open to the public, and that's going to be the case with almost all the individual SF-182s. Can't think of a case where it wouldn't be, right? In that case, you don't even need to reach out to the vendor. They're going to have this information on their website. But if you have a group, you may need to email the vendor to get this information, right? They're going to have group rates. You might want a private group. So you're going to need to email them and let them know. Do it by email rather than phone because then you have the documentation, right? Let them know how many seats you need, whether you want it to be virtual or in-person training, and be sure to tell them that you're requesting a quote for their commercial off-the-shelf training and you are not committing at this time for services. Next slide, please. Next, you're going to need to check each vendor for whether they are listed in SAM.gov. Once you are logged into SAM.gov, you can search. It will allow you to appear to be searching if you're not logged in, but it won't actually return any results. And I don't know why it doesn't tell you that, but I'm telling you. So please log in first. You can log in by SSO, so it's not too hard to do. But once you are logged in, then you can search. If you have the vendor's unique entity identifier or UEI number, just use that in the search window. It should pull them right up. But if you don't have it, you can put in their name, use the exact phrase search option. There are some other search options. You can use that the drop down menu to see what they are. Sometimes with an exact phrase, I'll still get a lot of returns, and then you can add the city name, where the vendor is located, and you can go more to a keyword search. The more you work with SAM, the more you get used to it. But that search window is a pretty good one. And once you locate the vendor that you're looking for, remember you've got 3 to 5, right? So you're going to look them all up in SAM, one at a time. Once you locate the one that you're looking for, it's going to pull up their record, and you see the picture on the right side of the screen. Check that record for 2 things. Do they have a good registration? In other words, it has not expired, right? So is the date in the future, right? And are they registered for the purpose of receiving all awards? The opposite of all awards is the phrasing is eluding me right now, but it basically says only for grants, right? They're only receiving they're only receiving grant money, right? Something like that. But if it says all awards, then they can be used for training as well. Make a note of what you find because you're going to input that into the tool later. And remember that you can list a vendor who is not active in SAM or not all awards, but choosing them is problematic, right? You can't, if you choose them, there's an additional process you have to go through to get authorization to do so, and it is by no means guaranteed. It's a very rare thing for us to do. So if that turns out to be your situation, reach out to us and we would try to help you. All right, so the next slide. Your next step in market research, the next data point that you need to get is whether each of your 3 to 5 vendors are small or large businesses. You're also going to find this in SAM. So you're going to click on their name in that record that you saw on the previous slide, right? You've located them now. So you're going to click on their name. It should be in blue. And you're going to go down to the FARS and DFARS reps and certs. And from there, you're going to scroll down until you get to FAR 52219-1, which is the Small Business Program Representations. That's going to open, you're going to go down to section C and you're just going to read there. It's going to say they are or they are not a small business for purposes of offering this training. Once again, if you need help with SAM, please reach out to your PTC or the PIH training mailbox. Next slide, please. Market research also involves checking for whether a merchant is 889 compliant. Section 889 is a shorthand reference to a section of the National Defense Authorization Act that prohibits purchasing from vendors that sell or use certain telecommunication and video surveillance equipment. So vendors have to affirmatively state that they do not use that. They do that through a filing. And this tool that is available to you will pull up whether the vendor has made that certification, right? So you just put their name or their UEI or even their website into the tool, and it pulls them up. And if there's a green check mark, you are good to go. Next slide, please. All right, so The next step in preparing market research is to decide which vendor you're choosing, right? So now you have a list. You're going to give an explanation for why you chose them, and this is called your justification. When you're choosing a large business over small businesses that could deliver, and the training costs more than $10,000, your justification needs to include why the large business is preferable for you to the small business. In coming up with your justification, you cannot rely on personal preference, the reputation of the training vendor, and things of that nature. So just saying that one of my vendors is the Harvard Business School, and everybody knows Harvard is the best, and so that's why I chose it. I'm with you, but it's not going to fly as a justification, right? Instead, your justification needs to be something about the training itself that makes your choice better than the training that is offered by the others. So for example, perhaps the vendor you're choosing is the only one that's offering the course in the time frame that you need to be taking it, right? That would be a justification. Or maybe the vendor you're choosing includes topics in a federally focused sort of presentation, and that better fits your training needs than the other vendors who aren't federally focused, right? These are just a couple of examples of justifications that are acceptable, although certainly there are others. The justification is yours. You know what you need, but these are just a couple of examples. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so now you have your market research together, you know who you're choosing and you know why. At this point, you're ready to put this into the training request tool. Once you have the vendors listed in the tool, be sure to put a checkbox next to the one you're selecting. And then you're going to add your justification in the box at the bottom. The justification text box at the bottom of the screen, and you'll see it pictured here. It requires a certain number of characters. So if it doesn't appear to be taking, it's not allowing you to move on, you'll know because the progress bar at the top will show complete if you've done it right. If that isn't happening and you've selected your vendor, it may just be that you used 5 words in your justification and you need to use 8. Just a tip. Okay, next slide, please. All right. All of that was offered because a lot of you were going to do your own market research. And I wanted you to see this really, it's a few steps, but it's not complicated. But we're here to help you, right? You can use this form, ask your PTC for the form, and request that the training and development team actually do the market research for you. We can do that. We do need, in many cases, up to 2 weeks, however, to get it done, right? So if you need it sooner, other resources to help you include your PTC. They are your in-office experts in all things training, including market research, and your PTL. Either might be able to just talk you through a point at which you're stuck or a point that's tripping you up and get you on the right road again. But if you want it done for you, please fill out the form and send it on in to our training division mailbox. Next slide, please. All right, so leaving then, we're done with our market research, right? We've put in the training course information in the submodule for that in the tool, and now we're ready to put in the cost of the training. Here's a couple things to remember about the costs. Always put in your full cost. Discounts like Early Bird may not be available by the time the SF 182 is approved. And then we face a situation where less money than you need has been approved. And we have to go back and amend the SF 182 and go back through the approval process, and it just takes more time, right? There are a couple of discounts that you can include, however. One is a member discount that you may have if you belong to the organization that is offering the training. In that case, you're going to fill in the box next to the word yes on the submodule. And at that point, a text box is going to open, and that's where you'll put your name and your member number so that when we go to pay for it, we can get you the member discount. If you're doing a group 182 and more than just one person is a member of the organization, then this text box is going to be able to take additional names and additional numbers. Another discount that is acceptable on the for you to state on the 182 is the GSA discount. You can put the GSA price instead of the price that the vendor offers everybody else, right? The GSA discount is one that some vendors provide, and they provide it to all federal employees and agencies, right? The key here is all. They either offer it to all the feds or they don't, right? We can't put in a special super duper discount just for today, just for us, or anything like that. Under no circumstances is program staff authorized to negotiate with vendors, right? So you're not haggling price here. You're just putting down what they've told you it costs. So please don't go anywhere near negotiations. All right, next slide, please. So continuing with the 182 submission process, we wanted to tell you where you can go to find those instructions about the new tool that I told you about. Right here on the top bullet is the SharePoint site. It has the slides from our training session on the new tool in September. It has user guides, which are written, and instructional videos to watch for both employees or people, requesters, right? Putting in the 182, and for those staff members who are reviewers on the 182s. And again, as always, feel free to contact your PTC if you need additional assistance or to reach out to the training team mailbox. Next slide. Once you have put in your SF-182 request, the tool is going to move it on along through all the review steps. You are looking to receive an email like the one on this slide when your SF-182 has been approved. You are not authorized to attend training until you receive this proposal, so please do not do it. Next slide, please. Some other do's and don'ts. You may and you should track the progress of your SF-182 after you submit it in the tool. You just go to your dashboard in the tool and pull up that particular 182 and it'll show you the progress. It'll tell you right there where it is on your dashboard. Whatever you do, please do not pay for training yourself. Do not attend without that approval that we talked about a couple slides ago. And do not talk to vendors about training details without an approved SF-182. Please also do not forward to anybody else the training attendance information the vendor is going to provide you once you have been registered and paid for. Remember, you are the one authorized to attend, or your group are the ones authorized to attend if they were listed on your approved SF-182, right? No one else is authorized to attend. And if the vendor comes back to us later for payment for the attendance of a person that we didn't authorize, there's a process called ratification. That ends up with the person who enabled the unauthorized attendance sometimes being held personally responsible for the cost. So you don't want any part of that. Just don't forward your attendance links and you should be fine. Next slide, please. All right, so now you've been approved for training and you're ready to go, but things happen. A family emergency, other unresolvable and important conflicts, right? And now you can't attend, right? You may contact the vendor to inquire about a reschedule at no charge, as long as the new date allows the training to be completed by fiscal year end, which for training completion purposes, we're allowing until October 10, 2025, right? If rescheduling isn't possible, my team can reach out to the vendor about getting a refund. You don't need to be talking to them about refunds yourself, but you do need, please, to reach out to your PTC and your PTL and let them know that there was a cancellation, whether you were able to reschedule, and if not, for what date. Training team can take it from there, do any revisions to the 182 that might be required, and make sure that you're ready to go. Next slide, please. All right, so you didn't have to cancel, you got to go to the training. Now what? Well, another feature of the new tool this year is that your training completion documentation, which you probably know is your certificate, the vendor sends you a certificate and says, congratulations, you finished the training. Here's your proof, right? They don't get emailed to the training team anymore. Instead, you go back into the training request system and you upload it to your original request. You're just going to open the request from your dashboard, open the completion submodule, and there'll be a place to put it right there. My team will retrieve it from the completion submodule. We will update your Encompass training transcript, and at this point, you'll get a course evaluation to complete. Please fill that out. These evaluations give us excellent feedback to help us determine vendor and instructor performance and whether the training was worthwhile. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm gonna make a break in the conversation by telling you that everything we just discussed about 182s was when you all have decided you want to take a training and you need permission and payment to do so, right? That's the 182. However, the training team, the training and development team, also offers training sessions for you on topics that you've told us you're interested in. So we find the vendor, we get the quote, we take care of all of that. All you need to do to attend these trainings is enroll, get your supervisor's approval to attend before the available seats are filled. In other words, no SF 182 for these PIH group trainings the training team is offering. We're going to publicize them through our PIH training newsletter as we always have. And this is one of those things that your PTC is going to be emailing you about. So one of those things that you need to be keeping your eyes open for from your PTC, right? Always open their emails. All right, next slide. So how do you access it? Well, once you receive notification of a PIH group training, you say, oh, look at that, asset repositioning. That sounds great. I want to take it. There's going to be a link to enroll in the course. Before you click the link, go on in to Encompass and log in. That way, when you click the link, it'll take you right there, right? You won't have to log in and then go back, click enroll and go back and forth, right? So at that point, it's going to open up the enrollment page within Encompass and you can enroll in the session. Most of the time, almost all of the time, however, you're not going to be registered and authorized to attend unless your supervisor approves you to go. So Encompass is going to send your supervisor an email saying your employee wants to take this class, right? But it's a really good practice for you to nudge them and let them know it's coming, so they'll be looking for it, so that they can get their approval done for you before all the seats are filled in the class. Next slide, please. You will know that you are registered for the class when you receive the Encompass calendar invite. You'll get two invites altogether, but the Encompass one is on the left. This invite is not going to contain attendance information. It's not going to say this is the Zoom link to go to this virtual training, for instance. That information is going to come in the second email, which is actually sent out by my team, by the training team. And it's probably going to come a few days prior to the training, right? Please do not forward that attendance information to anyone else, right? It's just like we talked about earlier with the SF 182s. A certain number of seats have been purchased from this vendor, right? A certain number of people have registered in Encompass and been authorized by their supervisors to attend. And when you forward the link, it not only messes with that whole system, but it could again result in the unauthorized commitment of government funds, for which ultimately, if you've done it, you might end up being held responsible. So just don't forward links and everybody will be good. Next slide, please. If you register for a PIH group course but end up having a conflict so that you cannot attend it, and you know about the conflict more than 3 days before the course starts, please go on back to Encompass and just withdraw. You can just take your name out of it, right? Closer than 3 days, and you might not be able to. The registration module in Encompass may be closed at that time, and that's okay. You can just email us and let us know. But by making sure you get withdrawn, it has two benefits. The first is that when there's a wait list, the first person on the wait list gets moved into the class and they're very, very happy. The second is that if you don't withdraw and then you just look like a no-show, right? And when attendance is taken and submitted after the course, both you and your supervisor are gonna get an email saying you were a no-show. So you can avoid that by just withdrawing when you know that you can't come. You can, and if you have to, you can email the training team, the day before or the day of. We have that happen. Just let us know, right? If you are more than 45 minutes late to the course, we're going to go to the wait list and bring the next person in because we just figure you're not coming. All right, next slide. But you don't have a conflict and you're not a no-show, so you take the entire course, and your Encompass transcript is going to be updated to reflect that you did that, right? You will receive a request at that point to complete an evaluation of the course. Again, please do so. This informs future trainings for us. It informs future use of this vendor. So it's really valuable information. And these evaluations do not take very long either. So if you could just take a few minutes, it would be greatly appreciated. Next slide. All right, so in addition to the group courses, the PIH Training and Development Division also offers a fundamentals series every fiscal year. This came about many years ago in response to PIH employees indicating that they needed to know more about programs and program areas outside their immediate work team. Fundamentals are short overviews of program offices or their programs or their initiatives. We'll start them in December and run them at least once monthly, some months more often than that, through the end of the fiscal year. All you need to do to attend these is pay attention to the invites on your calendar, because everybody in PIH gets an invitation to the fundamentals sessions. Fundamentals sessions are also recorded and posted to our training SharePoint site for future viewing. Next slide, please. Now, with fundamentals, we, the training team, are looking at your responses to our surveys and other information that we receive, and scheduling fundamentals with program offices on various topics that you've expressed interest in. Sometimes, however, program offices, program areas want to tell you all about a new program, an initiative, a rule, a notice, or something like that, right? In those cases, the training and development team will coordinate those meetings for the program office. Next slide. So if you're one of those program office employees and you have something that you and your team have decided that the PIH workforce or some part of it needs to be briefed on something, for instance, just fill out the form and send it to us. Your PTC has the form. You can contact the training division mailbox for the form, and we will set up the meeting for you. We do the logistics and you bring the content. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some resources for you. The top one is the training request tool. That's where you're going to go to put in your training requests. The second one is the SharePoint site that has the instructions and the videos about the training request tool. It also has the September training sessions that we did about the tool and the slides that go along with it. All of that's going to be on that request tool help SharePoint. Our training team SharePoint site is also listed there. And finally, if you have questions, you can go to your program office's PTC or just email our PIH training division mailbox. Next slide. And speaking of questions, at this point, I'll open it up for questions. Candace, I know you probably have some to read for the chat, and she'll give us instructions about how to let it be known that you want to ask something. Candace?
Absolutely. As we move to Q&A, please click the raise hand icon, which is located at the bottom of your screen. You'll hear a tone when your line is unmuted, at which time please state your name and ask your question. If you're not using WebEx audio, you may press #2 on your telephone keypad to join the queue. You may also continue to submit written questions through chat by selecting all panelists from the drop-down menu, typing your message in the box provided, and hitting enter to send. We received a couple of questions so far. Can a training include a certification exam?
If the exam is included in the overall training cost, then it can be included on the 182. If it's separate, it cannot.
Second question. I'm wondering if a capstone course, in which there are some assignments to be completed similar to other training materials, may be considered as a training or not.
Candace, would you read that again, please?
Certainly. They're wondering if a capstone course, in which there are some assignments to be completed similar to other training materials, may be considered as a training or not.
I don't know. I would need to see an example. So I encourage the questioner, if they have such a course that they wish to take, to reach out to us and we'll look at the specifics.
And the last question we have right now is, will the slides be sent out to attendees?
They sure will. Look for an email from your program training coordinator, your PTC. We're going to send them out. We'll probably not send them out until after next week's session. So Wednesday next week, also at 2:30, we're going to offer the same information. Any of you are welcome to come again if you want to hear it, but it's going to be the same information. And after that, we'll get the slides out to everybody.
And just as a reminder, you can click the hand icon at the bottom of the screen or submit your questions in chat to all panelists. But as of this time, we do not have any further questions.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming and have a good afternoon.
That concludes our conference. Thank you for using Inteller Events. You may now disconnect.